Good morning to all of you. So, in this lecture session, let's have a detailed discussion on Introduction to Drug Design. That is unit number 5 in third year B Pharmacy syllabus. So, here in the first part, in this session, we will discuss regarding various approaches used in drug design. Okay, so this is unit number 5. So where you have subtopics like various approaches used in drug design, and then one of the method is using physicochemical properties and development of QSAR models like Hansch model, Pharmacophore model, etc. And we have another very popular and reliable method is there, that is what we call it as popularly called as docking technique. This is actually a computational chemistry component. And then we have one more very important part of drug design, that is combinatorial chemistry, where we come to know about the principles and practice of producing large libraries of compounds in short period of time so that drug discovery time can be reduced. Okay, so these are the topics which we are going to discuss in this unit. So today we will see the introduction to drug design. Okay, so why we have to design a drug and what is the background for it, that is what we are going to see. Okay, so here first, to know what to do, so what has happened is what we have to learn first. Okay, so how drugs used to be discovered earlier, as you all knew, we have our first drug obtained from nature. Okay, so if you see the history, most of the drugs that we use right now, the food that we eat, everything is derived from nature. Okay, so several people tried and then observed the biological activity, and through that we came to know about medicinal properties of herbal materials. Okay, so that is actually the first way how people gained access to medicinal agents. So these are the 4 methods that were recorded to be the major producers of drugs. So one of them is, as I told you, the natural products, the products that are derived from nature, including plant sources, animal sources, and mineral sources, like whatever you had studied in pharmacognosy. And then second one is curious observations. So this is a very interesting component in drug discovery history. Okay, curiosity. The third one is observation of clinical reports, especially the side effects. Sometimes the side effects can help you discover a new drug. Fourth one is obviously serendipitous discovery or accidental discovery. There are so many such examples are there where accidentally drugs were discovered. So in today's presentation, you will see examples from all these, and from this history, we will derive the points how our latest drug discovery or drug design methodologies were evolved. Okay. So in case of natural products, the history is very old. Thousands of years back, there is a recorded evidence that people used medicinal agents. Like as we all have Ayurveda, but as far as the literature is concerned, one of the oldest literature that is available is with the Chinese literature, where 5,100 years back, they used Dicroea febrifusa, this root, for fevers. And then another one is mahuang or ephedra. You all knew this one, okay? Ephedra, from where ephedrine is obtained. Right now, so many headache medicines, they contain pseudoephedrine. So this was used almost 2,000 years back to treat cardiac and then asthma, hay fever, etc., nasal and chest decongestion. So here they used it. And in 3rd century BC, actually, Papaver somniferum was scientifically studied at this point, at this period of time, though Papaver somniferum is also as old as 2200 years back, we have reports of Papaver somniferum usage, okay, from the literature. So you all knew this one, okay? Papaver somniferum contains morphine. This is a very important analgesic agent, and from morphine, from synthetic modifications, we have that narcotic analgesic. That entire section of medicinal chemistry is derived from morphine. Right now we have morphine as well as codeine. Both are natural products. Both are very well accepted as, one as analgesic agent, codeine as cough suppressant. And then there is a report that cocoa leaves or coca leaves are, so coca leaves from where we get cocaine. So scientists found that coca leaves were found to be stimulant and euphoric, so that when you chew the leaves, you will forget like pains as well as hunger. Both will be, you will be forgetting about these two things. They don't bother you anymore. So that's the reason why you can work for more time. And then antihypertensive drug, that is reserpine, was extracted from Rauwolfia serpentina almost 250 years back. And 6th century AD, colchicum, from where colchicine is obtained, which is used for treating gout. So like this, we have several such examples like cinchona bark and also digitalis, which are very, very important ingredients in medicinal as medicinal agents like anti-malaria, cinchona bark, and cardiotonic, that is digitalis, cardiac glycosides are there. So in this way, we got our first drugs from nature, okay? Even before the development of organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, etc., we had knowledge on medicinal agents, so from the that are obtained from nature, okay? So that is the way how the first drugs were discovered. And discovery through curious observations. One of the classical example over here is discovery of penicillin. Okay, who discovered penicillin? Hello? Who discovered? Excellent, excellent. Okay, Alexander Fleming, while studying the microbial cultures, one of the gram-positive bacteria, Staphylococcus aureus culture, when he was growing it, he found that the growth was contaminated with a fungi. And his curious observation is like, whenever we see in microbiology laboratory, let's say, whenever you face any difficulty in maintenance of sterility, then your culture plates will be contaminated. Then what is the next thing we'll do? We'll simply throw it into dustbin, or otherwise we'll sterilize it and then remove it. But he observed curiously, because the fungal growth is inhibiting the gram-positive bacterial growth. So there is a clear zone of inhibition. So that indicates that there is some kind of chemical fight is happening, and then fungi is actually gaining the edge over the gram-positive bacteria. So from his observations, whatever happened in 1928, okay, so he commercial production started in 1935, and the structure of penicillin was solved by 1938, and in 1942 the entire team was awarded with the Nobel Prize. Okay, so it is only through curious observations. Whenever we are doing any scientific experimentation, observation is what differentiates scientists from a lab worker. Okay, so this is one of the example of how curious observations can discover a drug. The third one is observation through clinical observations. Okay, so in case of clinical observations, whenever we give a drug, it is expected that the drug may also influence other receptors in our body, so thereby you may be able to see some kind of side effects. Sometimes the side effects are going to be useful to you. The thing is, in antihistaminics, you can see they are sedatives. Okay, because of the sedating side effect, we also use antihistaminics to manage motion sickness. Okay, if somebody is suffering from car travel, some people they go dizzy over traveling by especially car or bus. So in that case, sedatives are given like this. Okay, so that sickness can be managed. Traveling, otherwise motion sickness can be managed. But here, some of the serious effects, like I'll give you the examples here, like side effects. One is bupropion. So bupropion actually an antidepressant kind of a drug. So it was found to while treating, it is actually antidepressant. But it was found to reduce tendency to smoke. Smoking tendency was reduced. Then, because in antidepressant category, we have so many other useful drugs were there, like fluoxetine, sertraline, etc. So that's the reason why bupropion became a very, very important medicine in the recovery phase of smoking. Okay, so if somebody has to stop smoking, he needs some kind of help, assistance from drugs. Okay, so there is bupropion is one such drug which is used for treating smokers. Okay, to reduce tendency to smoke. The second very, very important drug over here is sildenafil citrate. So sildenafil citrate is actually designed to treat angina or cardiac problems. Okay, because this is adenylyl cyclase. Sorry, so this is actually phosphodiesterase PDE4 enzyme inhibitor. Okay, but it was found to possess activity which helped in reducing impotency. So Pfizer released a blockbuster drug, that is Viagra, for treating impotency. Okay, so this is the way. So when sildenafil citrate tablets were in clinical trials, the doctors collected the data, the clinical observations, where the patients expressed their concern over erections. So it actually accidentally cured impotency. So thereby a new drug was discovered. For entirely new therapeutic category. So drug discovery may also happen by accident in which is observed in clinical observations. Okay, so it is like that. Sometimes drug metabolism can also give you a drug. Like terfenadine is an antihistaminic agent, and fexofenadine is actually metabolite of terfenadine. So here you can see one of the CH3 is converted to COOH. So this is another drug. The classical observation of metabolite derived drugs, the history of paracetamol. So this is paracetamol, para-acetaminophenol. Okay. So earlier, actually, scientists found that anilins have the capacity to act as febrifuges, or otherwise they reduce inflammation as well as pain. But anilins are highly toxic. But the metabolism study proved that parahydroxy. So this is the active ingredient. So later on, scientists through these observations discovered para-acetaminophenol as the actual drug. Okay, so drug metabolism study also can give you a drug. The last one is entirely accidental, because we are not expecting something to happen, but it happened. So this is a very interesting story behind diazepines. Benzodiazepine category, this you will see in case of anxiolytics. In anxiolytics, chlorodiazepine epoxide, alprazolam, all those things will come. These are what we call them as diazepines. So the interesting thing is, in a pharmaceutical company, scientists were actually targeting synthesis of these agents, these drugs, okay, for CNS depression. Okay, so if you see the structure, so it is like aromatic ring, NHCH3. So this is the pharmacophore. So they wanted to constrict this region. Okay, so that it can modify the biological activity. So this is their idea. So they wanted to synthesize these compounds, okay, phenoxylanes. But while synthesis, they actually are getting a diazepine 7-membered ring, which is not expected. It is happening via a rearrangement, so when they were attempting to synthesize methylamine, okay, so they got accidentally a diazepine ring, and they found this is a very good anxiolytic. But in contrast, whatever compounds that actually were synthesized in this structure, none of them were not active. Okay, so this is actually a classic example of how drugs may also be discovered accidentally. Okay, so there are so many such examples are there in history as far as accidental drug discovery are concerned. Okay, so now how many different methods did we see? One is from nature, the second one is from clinical observations, third one discovery through curious observations, then clinical observations, then accidental drug discovery. Okay, so these are some of the methods right now we have in the pharmaceutical industry. So whenever a new disease comes, what our people used to do is they will simply follow any one of these 4 methods to discover new drug. But when we blindly follow these strategies, what will happen? A lot of attrition will be there. So classically, let's say when COVID-19 infection came into being, then what scientists are, let's say we don't have any rational drug discovery tools are there right now, then what will happen? A pharmaceutical company will synthesize thousands and thousands of molecules, and they will put it through screens, because drug discovery happens via a stage-wise screening process. In the beginning, they will choose a model, in vitro model, and screen the molecules, and then those molecules which have shown antiviral properties, so they will be chosen and they will be sent to clinical trials. Okay, clinical trials. So in one of the statistical analysis, okay, scientists found that if you had started from 5,000 to 10,000 molecules, you would end up in having 250 molecules with antiviral property, out of which there is a chance that 5 compounds can go to clinical trials, further clinical trials, and out of which 1 molecule may get approval from FDA. See, 5,000 molecules to 1 molecule. So that too may or may not. Okay, that's a question mark. Another problem is, even if you get it approved, at what cost? See, this is a simple bar graph showing that with the time, okay, you can see how actually the expense of drug discovery is increasing, expenses. So earlier, number of drugs per billion US dollars spending. Okay, so in 1950, if you spend $1 billion US dollars, you would be having at least 25 to 30 molecules in the market. Okay, but right now, if you spend $1 billion, you won't be able to see a drug in the market. It is so huge, it is so expensive. Okay, so that's the reason why one need to be really careful in developing rational drug discovery tools. Okay, so now let's see why drugs fail. Drugs may fail, one, because of one is pharmacokinetic problems. Second one is pharmacodynamic problems. Third one is formulation problems. Okay, so in case of pharmacokinetics, absorption, distribution, metabolism, elimination, and toxicity. Okay, so in these parameters, let's say you have a drug which is really good in the screenings, but the drug is not absorbed, or drug is not distributed properly, drug is not metabolized properly, or drug is not eliminated properly, or the drug is generating toxicity either by itself or through metabolites. So in any one of these may lead to failure. Okay, so to give you an example, balaglitazar. Okay, balaglitazar is one of the diabetic drug developed by Dr. Reddy's. Okay, so this is one of the classical example of how things will change when ADMET properties are not fine. So this was found to be toxic to liver or hepatotoxic. So then balaglitazar failed because of failed in advanced phases of clinical trials because it is found to be hepatotoxic or it is initiating liver cancer. Okay, so this is the way. So a drug may also fail in absorption, distribution, metabolism, or elimination. And the second one is pharmacodynamic problem. Okay, in case of pharmacodynamics, potency. Okay, the drug may be very less potent, drug may not be selective. Okay, so earlier we had the reason why we don't use adrenaline as a drug. Adrenaline is not a drug. It is used only in emergencies when somebody suffers from shock. Okay, to restore blood pressure, they give adrenaline only in emergencies. A drug is something like which you and me take when we had a headache or we had some fever. Okay, so it is not like a regular drug, not even Schedule H drug. It is an emergency medicine. Okay, so why it is like that? Let's say somebody needs to reduce blood pressure or something like that. Then the drug need to work only on lungs. Okay, so we look for selective beta-1 receptor blockers like propranolol or atenolol. Okay, so if it is not selective, it cannot be considered as a drug. It is like that. Either it is less potent or selective. So these two can be problems. Then it can also create problems with formulation. It is always preferred to use oral doses. Sometimes oral doses is not possible. So the suggestion is injection. Okay. Sometimes the drug may cause irritation, local inflammation, immune type of responses. So many other problems will come. So that's the reason why formulation creates again a problem with which drugs may fail. Okay, so now what we have to do? Okay, so how to convert failure to or predict failure. Okay, so what we have seen right now: absorption, distribution, metabolism, elimination, toxicity, potency. Okay, so these are the things which we have to predict. So if we had predicted, if we have the capability to predict, then so 5,000 molecules upon screening, stage wise, we get 5 hit molecules, from where 1 molecule is FDA approved. So if we have the capability to predict at least some of the molecules by using one or the other knowledge-based screening system, then we need not synthesize or look for 5,000 molecules. We simply get 50 molecules, 1 molecule FDA approved. Okay. So if we can increase, okay, 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 50. So this is what is the objective of rational drug design and discovery. Okay, so this is the main objective of our rational drug design and discovery concepts. How it is done? I will give you only an outline here, and we will be discussing in detail regarding all these parameters in the coming slides. Okay. So in the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination, what exactly is happening? A drug is taken and it will cross membranes. Okay, maybe it is in stomach, then blood vessel, then into the tissues. Let's say you have a headache, you have taken anacin or some kind of analgesic. So that is first going into your stomach, then it will dissolve and then it will be absorbed into blood, and then that will go to the target tissue. Everywhere you are going to cross a membrane. So while crossing a membrane, it is almost like fractionation. Okay, we have layer 1 and this is layer 2. Means one is water and second one is octanol. If it is like that, so here from blood it is crossing the membrane. So membrane is a lipid bilayer. Here we have blood. Here also we have blood. A drug molecule has to cross from side to side. What does it mean? The drug has to first get itself dissolved in this lipid membrane and then it will go to the other side of the membrane. It is like partial permeability. Okay, so here what exactly is the parameter which controls distribution of a drug from side to side? It's a solubility. Okay, if the compound is highly polar, it will stay on one side. And if the compound is highly non-polar, it prefers to stay with the membrane. So if you could find something related to solubility, and if you could prepare and if you could observe what kind of changes that are happening with the change in solubility, then there is a possibility that you can make a mathematical equation through which you will be able to predict how solubility is affecting biological activity. Okay, how solubility is affecting biological activity. Maybe by this time you might have gone through this one, general anesthetics. Okay, in general anesthetics, if you increase lipophilicity, increased concentration in brain. Okay, so if you wanted to discover a general anesthetic, the drug need to be highly lipophilic, otherwise it won't be able to reach brain where the actual biological activity is supposed to come. Okay, so this is the simple logic. So here what exactly we are doing? We are going to collect the data from literature where several drugs, when they are successful, what was their solubility? When the drugs are failed, in that case also what was their solubility, or in simple term log p value, which is a mathematical parameter which we can calculate. So with this we will be able to bring some conclusion. Okay, so if you have to synthesize 5000 molecules to discover a general anesthetic, then you will first calculate their physicochemical property, so that which are highly lipophilic only will be prepared. So there are something like 500 molecules will be there. Remaining 4500 molecules failed. 4000 molecules failed in solubility test, which is mandatory for a drug to concentrate in brain. Okay, so this is the way how we can do preliminary screening. So thereby it cuts down the need for unnecessary synthesis of molecules and screening them. Synthesis and screening both are highly expensive, so that, and they are time consuming. So that is the reason why when we learn rational drug design and discovery methodologies, expenditure can be reduced so that we can do efficient drug discovery. Okay, so here what is it that we have seen? A physicochemical property can be deciding biological activity of a select drug molecule in a select category. Are you able to understand what I am saying? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Now, so far what we have seen is whatever happened in history, okay, 1950 and before that, whatever happened. But right now, our understanding is like drugs act via interacting with receptors. Okay, so receptor concept was actually invented, or otherwise the concept was put forward by Paul Ehrlich. Okay, so while studying the Gram stainings, he found that a chemical to interact with a biological system, it need to have a reception system in the biological environment. Otherwise, it cannot interact or modify the biological system. So that is his proposal. So drugs act on receptors. Receptors are present either on cell, in the cell, or in blood. Okay, blood compartment. In the cell, this is one compartment. On the cell, in the cell, or in blood, means in free flowing condition. On the cell means like GABA receptors. In the cell means the enzymes we have, DNA, gyrase, etc. In the blood means acetyl coenzyme A. Okay, is it not acetyl coenzyme A? Acetylcholine esterase enzyme, which is there in blood, free flowing in blood. Okay, a receptor can be any one of them. And the next one is receptors are proteins, and proteins, they contain, in case of receptor, a protein can be an enzyme or a transmembrane protein or anything like that. So if this is the protein, this is like catalytic region, and this is where receptor is there. So when you activate the receptor, the catalytic site can be activated. So here our understanding right now is a protein is a three-dimensional receptors are there on proteins. Proteins can be enzymes, transmembrane proteins, etc. And they'll contain three-dimensional shape and size, and there they will have specific shape and size meant for a ligand. Okay, that region is defined as a receptor. Okay, now if you know the shape of the receptor, you can design a molecule. So that is our understanding right now. I'll give you an example right now. So proteins are now crystallized. Crystalline proteins are submitted for X-ray crystallography, and X-ray crystallography process gives us a model, atomic model of the three-dimensional structured protein. Okay, 3D proteins. So when you know the protein which is responsible for some biological activity, and when you know that a receptor pocket is available, okay, it's a three-dimensional shape, etc., is all known. So by using appropriate computational tools like computer-aided drug design tools, you can design a molecule, okay, by using processes called as docking. Okay, so you can now make use of the data that is available in literature, so that by using physicochemical properties we can design a drug, or if you know the receptor, 3D structure of receptor, okay. So if you know the physicochemical properties that are ideally required for a particular biological activity, we can use this concept, or when you know the three-dimensional structure of a receptor. Okay, so in either of these cases, we can use these concepts by using appropriate tools like computer-aided drug design tools to design drugs. Okay, so this is only an outline. Okay, so we will discuss in detail regarding what are all the physicochemical properties and how physicochemical properties can influence biological activity, how these physicochemical properties can be computed, calculated, and used as a statistical models for screening, pre-screening the molecules. So this is also called as virtual screening methods. Okay, so when we use only physicochemical properties and structural information from only ligands, we call them as ligand based drug design tools. When we know the three-dimensional structure of protein, we call them as structure based drug design tools. Okay, so this is all about the introduction to the way how people used to get drugs, and how by implementing the same tools, why we face difficulty, because a lot of attrition is there, and how we can now make use of the knowledge that we have gained in the past 100 years or 150 years, so that we can design molecules and make the decision, knowledge based decision. Okay, our aim is to knowledge based decision to reduce attrition. Okay, attrition, and to increase success rate. Okay, so this is our objective. So with this objective, we will learn the concepts of modern drug design tools. Okay, so friends, with this I conclude today's session. I hope you understood the concepts. So all of you, I hope you understood the concept of the reason why we needed drug design. Okay, this is only an introduction outline. So from the next class onwards, you will see various tools that are available for us, various methods like physicochemical properties. Through physicochemical properties, how can we design a drug or make a decision whether to synthesize a molecule or not? And then we extend the discussion to modeling tools like pharmacophore modeling, QSAR modeling. Okay, and then we will go to the structure based design tools like docking technique, and then we will see the combinatorial processes. Okay, so I hope I made myself clear to all of you. If you have any doubt, please post it in the WhatsApp or else send me an email. Okay, so I'll try to share this video, and material is also with me. I'll share it with you so that you'll get more clarity. Okay, so with this I conclude my lecture session.